At 03:47 a.m. local time on December 22, 2025, inside the heavily fortified Almaz-Antey complex in Nizhny Novgorod, a Russian technician is calmly checking the diagnostic logs for a 91N6 Big Bird radar. He has no idea that for the past 73 minutes, Ukrainian eyes have been tracking the thermal signatures of his very own workstation. In exactly 94 seconds, the crown jewel of the Russian defense industry, the assembly line for the S-500 Prometheus, will face a reality check it was never designed to survive. Just 80 feet above the freezing surface of the Volga River, a swarm of Ukrainian hybrid drones, each weighing less than 50 pounds, is screaming toward the target at 120 miles per hour. While the S-500 is marketed as a hypersonic killer, capable of intercepting targets 370 miles away in near space, it is currently proving to be completely blind to a few $1,000s worth of hardware hugging the riverbanks. In a frozen bunker miles away, a Ukrainian operator watches his FPV feed with predatory focus. The factory's massive workshops housing the 77N6N interceptors and sophisticated radar arrays loom ahead in high-definition infrared. To the Russians, this facility is an invincible sanctuary of military might. To the drones, it's a $2.5 billion target waiting for its final countdown. The clock hits 45 seconds. The era of the S-500 is about to end before it even truly begins. 3:48 a.m., the swarm is now 188 miles into its deep strike mission, carving through the freezing Russian night at a sustained 120 miles per hour. The drones are hugging the winding curves of the Volga River, staying exactly 80 feet above the water's surface. By doing this, they aren't just hiding, they are weaponizing the laws of geometry. At this altitude, the Earth's curvature creates a physical radar horizon that effectively blinds the long-range Russian S-400 batteries stationed on the higher ground. Every bend in the river provides a new layer of clutter, a mess of radar reflections from the high, frozen riverbanks and winter fog that makes it impossible for automated Russian detection systems to get a clean lock. The drones are controlled by a custom-coded AI flight bridge, a digital navigator that processes terrain data faster than a high-end NVIDIA-powered workstation. This system constantly adjusts the pitch and yaw of each drone to compensate for the brutal 15 degrees of air, which makes the atmosphere as dense as soup. While the air is thick, the Ukrainian engineers have outfitted these units with specialized carbon fiber propellers and heated motor hubs to prevent icing, a level of detail that turns a standard hobbyist tool into a professional-grade assassin. In the command bunker, the operator's pulse is racing at 140 beats per minute. Despite the sub-zero temperatures outside, sweat is dripping down his temples, stinging his eyes beneath his FPV goggles. He isn't just flying, he's threading a digital needle through a corridor of death. One twitch of the thumb, 1 millisecond of lag, and his drone becomes a $20,000 frozen lawn ornament at the bottom of the Volga. The drones are now entering the final dead zone, a stretch of the river where the Almaz-Antey complex begins to loom on the tactical map, its defensive perimeter glowing like a hornet's nest. They are deep inside enemy territory, Len Loot, Nyunyung Ninja, sneaking like ninjas, waiting for the exact moment to strike. 03:52 a.m. The electronic silence is shattered as a Russian Pantsir S-1 air defense system, the ultimate guardian of the complex, suddenly surges to life. Its 1RS-21 target acquisition radar begins spinning at 30 rotations per minute, flooding the river valley with enough electromagnetic energy to toast a turkey at 5 miles. This is the SA-22 Greyhound, a $15 million combination of dual 30mm cannons and 12 surface-to-air missiles designed specifically to intercept anything from a stealth fighter to a low-flying cruise missile. On the glowing green displays inside the Pantsir's command module, a faint pulse appears 12 miles to the west. It's a sacrificial Ukrainian scout drone, purposefully flying slightly higher to bait the enemy's sensors. To the Russian operators, this isn't a threat, it's a statistic. They've been trained to view these small blips as easy prey. The commander barks an order and two 57E6 missiles erupt from their canisters, their solid fuel boosters accelerating them to Mach 5 in less than 2 seconds. At nearly 3,800 miles per hour, these missiles possess more G-force than a Formula One car, and the kinetic energy of a high-speed projectile meant for total annihilation. The impact is a blinding white flash that reflects off the frozen Volga. "Target destroyed!" the Russian operator shouts, his voice crackling with a mix of relief and arrogance. In the command center, they exchange high fives, convinced their invincible shield has held firm once again. They see it as a total victory for Russian engineering over cheap Ukrainian scrap. But here is the dramatic irony. They've just used $300,000 worth of sophisticated interceptors to kill a $500 plywood decoy. They are so busy celebrating their 1% success that they have completely ignored the 99% of the threat still lurking in the electronic shadows below. It's like a homeowner cheering because they swatted a single fly while a swarm of hornets is already crawling through the air vents. The Russian defenses have just committed the ultimate sin of warfare. They've blinked. And in this game of high-stakes chess, blinking is the last thing you do before checkmate. 03:54 a.m. The Ukrainian command center initiates the Decoy wave, a sacrificial swarm of 12 legacy radio-controlled drones intentionally climbing to 250 feet to maximize their radar cross-section. These aren't stealthy infiltrators, they are electronic sirens designed to be as loud and obnoxious as possible. They pulse with high-intensity radio signals, practically screaming "shoot me" at every Russian sensor within a 50-mile radius. The Russian response is immediate and overwhelming. The 92N2E gravestone radar, the sophisticated eyes of the S-400 battery, locks onto the swarm with clinical precision. 3 more 57E6 missiles streak into the sky, their white-hot trails carving through the sub-zero air. Simultaneously, the Krasuka-4, Russia's premier mobile electronic warfare complex, surges to full power. This $5 million behemoth begins pumping out megawatts of broadband jamming energy, flooding the 2.4 GHz and 5.8 GHz frequencies with enough RF noise to disrupt every civilian cell phone in the region. Inside the Russian EW van, the displays turn into a chaotic mess of static and ghost returns. The operators are smirking, convinced they've successfully unplugged the Ukrainian attack. To them, this looks like a desperate, amateurish move from Kiev. They view this jamming as a total victory, an electronic wall that no commercial-grade drone could ever hope to penetrate. It's the military equivalent of a homeowner blasting a jet engine on their front lawn to drown out a neighbor's music. Yet, this massive display of Russian electronic might is exactly what the Ukrainian planners were counting on. By forcing the Krasuka-4 to operate at maximum capacity, the Russians have effectively blinded their own passive sensors with their own noise. They are so focused on winning this electronic shouting match that they've stopped looking for the quiet whispers. The Russian commander reports back to Moscow that the amateur radio drones have been neutralized, blissfully unaware that he has just cleared the path for a much more sophisticated predator. In this high-stakes game of digital poker, the Russians just went all in on a bluff, while Ukraine hasn't even revealed its winning hand. 03:56 a.m. While the Russian Krasuka-4 operators are screaming into the void with megawatts of useless jamming power, the real predators are unspooling from the darkness. These are the ambush swarms, an elite group of hybrid drones that have spent the last 10 minutes hovering silently just inches above the Volga's ice. They aren't using radio frequencies to communicate. They aren't even using GPS. They are hardwired. Each drone is tethered to a mothership hovering 6 miles away by a spool of specialized fiber-optic cable. Think of this as the ultimate military-grade version of a fiber-to-the-home internet connection, but shrunk down to a microscopic scale. The glass core of this cable is just 9 microns wide, thinner than a single strand of human hair. While the Russians are desperately trying to jam the air, they are effectively trying to punch a shadow. You can jam a radio wave, but you can't jam a piece of glass. This physical connection allows for a 1.5 gigabit data stream with 0 latency. It's the difference between trying to play a high-stakes competitive video game on a spotty coffee shop Wi-Fi versus being hardwired into a Tier 1 data center. The operator in the bunker is seeing a crystal-clear 4K feed of the target, unaffected by the electronic storm raging outside. It's like wearing a pair of Sony WH-1000 XM5 noise-canceling headphones in the middle of a construction site. To the drone, the Russian electronic warfare assault is nothing more than harmless background noise. The tension spikes as the lead drone encounters a Russian Ka-52 Alligator attack helicopter flying a low-level contour patrol just 50 feet above the river. The downdraft from the helicopter's massive coaxial rotors creates a localized hurricane of sleet and freezing spray. The Ukrainian operator's hands are rock steady, his focus as sharp as a Patek Philippe master watchmaker. He executes a violent S-turn dive, dropping the drone to within 3 feet of the jagged ice to avoid the helicopter's thermal sensors. The fiber-optic cable tenses like a piano wire threatening to snap. If it breaks, the drone becomes a $5,000 piece of trash. But the cable holds. The drone slips under the K-52's radar shadow undetected and unbothered. The Russian pilot is looking for radio signatures that don't exist, while the real threat just passed beneath his landing gear. The drones are now less than 2 miles from the Almaz-Antey complex. The motherships have successfully acted as the ultimate high-speed routers, and the ambush is now officially in its final terminal phase. The Russians are still celebrating their victory over the decoys, completely unaware that their firewall has already been bypassed by a 6-mile-long extension cord. 03:58 a.m., the final approach begins. On the high-definition FPV displays, the Almaz-Antey complex transforms from a distant smudge into a sprawling $2.5 billion industrial nightmare. The drone's optical sensors, featuring a clarity that would make a professional Leica photographer envious, zoom in with surgical precision. The factory's massive skylights reflect the dim moonlight, and the distinctive silhouettes of the 91N6 Big Bird radar arrays, the multi-million-dollar eyes of the S-500, are now clearly visible sitting on their assembly jigs. Inside the Panzer S-1 command cabin, the atmosphere of celebration has curdled into pure, unadulterated panic. The lead operator stares at his screen as a cluster of high-contrast thermal ghosts suddenly materializes just 500 yards out. He frantically checks his Krasuka 4 status lights. They are glowing green, pumping out maximum jamming power. Yet, these intruders aren't staggering or veering off course. They are boring in with the steady, relentless focus of a Google Waymo autonomous vehicle navigating a quiet suburban street. The dramatic irony is reaching a breaking point. For years, the Kremlin marketed the S-500 Prometheus as the Rolls-Royce of global air defense, a system capable of striking targets in the stratosphere. Simultaneously, the operators on the ground are realizing that their billion-dollar firewall has a gaping analog hole. They are literally watching their careers, and perhaps their lives, evaporate in 4K resolution. The commander screams into his headset for manual cannon fire, a desperate last-ditch effort to stop the unstoppable. The drones split into 4 separate attack vectors, executing a coordinated pincer maneuver that forces the Russian defense turrets to traverse at speeds exceeding their mechanical limits. It's like trying to track 4 different Olympic sprinters with a single handheld flashlight. 33 seconds to impact. The Ukrainian operator's finger hovers over the final authorization. He can see the individual rivets on the factory's reinforced steel doors. The hypersonic killer is about to be executed by a Bay drone that costs less than a mid-sized luxury SUV. The countdown to the most expensive fireworks display in Russian history has reached its final silent stage. 4:00 a.m. The Ukrainian operator in the bunker whispers 2 words: "Glory to Ukraine." He presses the final commit button on his control deck. On his screen, the 4K feed of the Almaz-Antey complex vanishes into a blinding white glare as the drones execute their terminal dives at 120 miles per hour. This isn't just a hit, it's a surgical amputation of Russia's strategic future. 4 drones carrying 15-pound thermobaric warheads strike with mathematical synchronization. The first 2 breach the factory's reinforced steel roof, detonating directly above the primary assembly jigs for the 91N6 Big Bird radar. Instead of a standard explosion, the thermobaric charges create a sustained 3,000-degree Fahrenheit fireball that sucks the oxygen out of the massive workshop. This intense heat doesn't just melt metal, it liquefies the high-purity silicon BOMAC and gold-plated waveguides inside the radar arrays. Imagine taking a blowtorch to a $100 million liquid-cooled server farm. The damage is instantaneous, irreversible, and absolute. Simultaneously, the second pair of drones slams into the storage bay housing the 77N6N interceptors. The 500 psi shockwave from the initial blast triggers a catastrophic secondary detonation. The solid rocket propellant inside the Russian missiles, designed to withstand extreme G-forces in flight, cannot survive a direct thermobaric impact. It ignites in a violent chain reaction, turning the entire warehouse into a multi-billion-dollar furnace. The structural steel beams, engineered to support thousands of tons, lose their integrity under the heat and collapse like a house of cards. This isn't a chaotic accident, it's a perfectly calculated physical reaction where every ounce of explosive energy was used to maximize the economic fallout. The strategic math for Moscow is devastating. In less than 3 minutes, Russia's invincible S-500 Prometheus project has been set back at least 24 months. The Almaz-Antey facility, the crown jewel of their defense industry, is now a smoldering graveyard of burnt high-tech components. Ukraine's investment? Exactly $425,000 in basement-built hardware. Russia's loss? Over $1.2 billion in specialized machinery, rare earth components, and infrastructure. Even the most aggressive venture capitalists on Wall Street would be stunned by this 30,000% return on investment. By eliminating the hypersonic killer before it could even leave the factory, Ukraine has successfully blindfolded the Russian air defense network for years to come. The Kremlin spent decades trying to build a wall against the future, only to have it torn down by a few clever minds and a 6-mile-long string of glass. Ingenuity has officially checkmated ego. Prometheus didn't just steal fire. Tonight, he was consumed by it.